allow the lecture to go on. I was lecturing about my book, Human Devolution, a Vedic alternative to Darwin's theory, where basically I say we didn't evolve up from matter. We devolved or came down from a level of pure consciousness to which we're meant to return. So, they went, these professors who had invited me went to the local branch of the Russian Academy of Sciences, and they talked to the director there, and he said, "Oh, Michael Cremo can speak here, and nobody will put any pressure on me. You know, he'll speak here." So they arranged for me to lecture at the auditorium of the Russian Academy of Sciences in this city, and they arranged for buses to take students and professors from the university, to the new location. And the professors told me that more people came than would have come if the lecture had been held at the university. Because everybody in the university was talking, "Wow, why did they cancel this lecture? What's he going to say? What's so dangerous about?" So it was a packed lecture, and they just bought, all the professors and students were buying books, and it was pretty amazing. And then the next year, I did another lecture tour of Russia. And I went to the same university, and I spoke in the biology department, no problem. I guess they learned their lesson. So there are attempts like that. And another attempt to kind of suppress something, it had to do with media, television. Yeah, I talked a little bit earlier about these California gold mine discoveries, the 50-million-year-old human artifacts that were found there. So some of those artifacts are still in the collection of the Museum of Anthropology at the University of California at Berkeley. So there was this television producer in New York. His name is Bill Cote. He was making a documentary for NBC called The Mysterious Origins of Man. He'd gotten a hold of my book. He read it, and my book, Forbidden Archaeology, and he wanted to include some of the material in this documentary. He wanted me also to appear in the documentary, and that's something that pretty regularly happens to me. I've been on a lot of national TV shows, talking about this stuff. So in this particular case, he wanted to use some of the cases. So I told him about these California gold mine discoveries. I told him he should go to the museum. But when he went to the museum officials just refused to allow him to see or film the artifacts. But we were able to find some photographs of the artifacts that were taken by Dr. Whitney in the 19th century. So we did have some images to use in the television program. But then when the Darwinist scientists at the University of California at Berkeley found out that NBC was going to show this television program that contained evidence that contradicted the Darwinian theory of human evolution, they went ballistic. They actually made an organized attempt to stop NBC from showing the program. And one thing they were concerned about is, during the week we've got these kids locked down in school, and we're able to just give them our ideas, nothing else. And then they're going to go home, they're going to turn on the TV, they're going to see something that we can't allow this in this country. This is, so they made an organized attempt, they asked scientists from all over the world to write to NBCs. One other thing they were concerned with is that Michael Cremo had something to do with the show. And he's a member of the Krishna consciousness movement, so this cannot be allowed. This absolutely cannot be allowed. So, but NBC did show the program, and it actually was quite popular. And they decided to show it again, and that made these scientists even more angry. So again, they decided to go higher up. They organized a whole campaign among scientists from all over the world to go to the president of the General Electric Company, which owns NBC, try to get him to order NBC not to show the program again. And that effort failed. They did show the program, and NBC actually had some advertisements out, telling people, watch the program the scientists don't want you to see. and then this same group of scientists went to the government, to the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, which is the agency of the government that controls the TV and radio broadcasting companies. And they wanted the government to fine NBC millions of dollars, force them to broadcast primetime apologies for having shown a program that contradicted the theory of evolution. And again, the FCC didn't do that, but it just shows you that there are attempts to filter the knowledge, to suppress evidence, so there are, yes, I could go on and on.
These artifacts, though they're not shown on museum shelves, but they're in their basements.
Yeah.
They're available if anyone would like to go and see.
No, not for anyone to go to see. The only reason I was able to see them, like I said, the television producer, he wasn't allowed, but I went back later because I'm a member of the World Archaeological Congress, is one of the world's largest international organizations of archaeologists. So and they hold meetings every 4 years, conferences, and I made a proposal to present a report on these discoveries to the next conference, and it was accepted. So I got a letter from the academic committee of the World Archaeological Congress that yes, Michael Cremo was approved to present this paper. So I went to the directors of the museum at the university, and on that basis they agreed to let me see the artifacts, but it wasn't easy. They tried to, the first thing I had to do was go in and tell them the exact artifact numbers in their collections that I wanted to see. And if you don't know stuff like that, I mean, you may suspect something's there, but if you can't say, I want to see artifact number CF 747095110, you have to go through their whole bureaucracy to do it. So I had to go there, go through their catalogs and identify the exact things that I wanted to see, and then I had to make a research proposal. And then the research proposal had to be evaluated by the academic committee of the museum. And then they said, okay, we'll let you do it. And then you have to report at the museum at this time, at this day. And so I did that, and then there was some museum official that accompanied me every step of the way.
No cameras, right?
Camera was allowed, but the use of the images very strictly controlled.
Have you thought of making a documentary of your findings and publicizing that on, public access or YouTube or things like that?
Yes, and to some extent this has been done. There's a lot of, if you search on YouTube for Michael Cremo, you'll see a lot of stuff. To do really effective documentaries costs some money, and also, there's problems. Like I said, I already have images of some of these things, but in order to get them, I had to sign a release that was only for my personal scientific use. I presented them at a scientific conference that's not for commercial or public broadcast. So there's kind of strict control. And I get proposals from television producers all the time to do these things. And we did to some extent with Bill Coty. That documentary is there. It comes down to just how strict, like I said, when the television producer from NBC, which is the major network, went there and said we wanted to film the artifacts, they wouldn't let him. When I went as, just an individual investigator, asking for permission to do some research that I would use only in a scientific context, in the context of a scientific conference, they allowed that. Now, there are ways around that, because now there's CGI. You can just look at the photograph and make your own CGI image of it. There are ways around it. And periodically I'm talking with television producers who, they hear my lectures and they get excited about doing something, but sometimes the difficulties are for them a little bit hard to overcome. Yes?
Not only the archaeological and fossil evidence supports that humans have been on the Earth for a long time, but also the ancient writings. Like there's the Sumerian King's List from modern-day Iraq, which are clay tablets with ancient inscriptions on them they found that are thousands of years old. But these tablets describe kings that have gone back for thousands of years, just nonchalantly.
Yes, the Babylonian king lists go back 432,000 years. And they were compiled by an Assyrian or Babylonian historian named Berosus. And he compiled these king lists, and they tell how long each king reigned, and it goes back 432,000 years, which is kind of an interesting figure from the Vedic point of view. But according to standard histories, urban civilizations, kings and things like that, that's less than 10,000 years old. So they have this going back 432,000 years. It's interesting. There's Egyptian pharaoh lists that go back hundreds of thousands of years. There are Chinese emperor lists that go back hundreds of thousands of years. And the way that modern historians relate to these things, of course, they're also in India. There's list of kings, like the Solar Dynasty, the Surya Vamsa. It goes all the way back to a king named Ikshvaku, who existed 120 million years ago. And there are lists of the kings from the time of King Ikshvaku to Lord Ramachandra, all the way up to the last one, who ruled just a couple of thousand years ago. So, and then there's the Mayan calendar, which has these long cycles of time going back hundreds of thousands, millions of years. So, but the way that historians look at these things, they say, well, these things are historically accurate up to a few thousand years ago, and beyond that it's just invention, it's mythology, it's just stories that people have invented. I don't see it like that.